Mm. After a long time in the wilderness, Arizona football might have found a defense. Again, a defense. How did that happen? How did we get here? And what does it mean going forward? Let's get started here on your first listen of the day, Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. As always, I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, for the longest time, we have known this about Arizona football, and this did not used to be the case, but it has been certainly the case in recent memory. Arizona football has generally been Arizona football has not won many games. You got a 20-game losing streak. That kind of goes without saying. On top of that, you win 1 out of 25 games. That goes without saying as well. But to even bring the issue even closer to the fold, even more impressively, Arizona has fielded some of the worst defenses that college football has seen. And a big part of that is the fact that there is no size on the defensive line, nor has there ever been any size, at least in the last 10, 12 years. Now, back in the 90s, obviously, the Desert Swarm, you had really good defenses. That has not been the case, though, at all with these Arizona teams. And to give you an idea, the best example, and we like this guy a great deal, Parker Zellers, 255-pound defensive tackles at 5'11", 5'10". No matter how hard you try, those generally do not work out. That's just kind of the way it is. But Jedd Fisch came in and he said, listen, we're undersized. We have got to get bigger. We have got to get more talented. And that's on me as the head coach to be able to figure that one out. And as we've talked about before, he did that on the offensive side of the ball first and foremost. He got a group of players in there who are offensively, probably one of the better units in the country. I'm just going to say it right now. You watch that game against Mississippi State, you know that there is some next-level talent right there, whether you're looking at T-Mac, whether you're looking at Jacob Cowing, Jonas Sabanea, Jordan Morgan, et cetera, et cetera. Those players outside of Jordan Morgan were not here at the U of A when Jedd Fisch took over, and he got those guys in one recruiting class. Just one recruiting class right there. So the offense was taken care of fairly quickly, but I think so many people wondered, okay, well, you got a guy coming in with an offensive mindset. Cool. But what can that really do for the defensive side of the ball? Because again, let's be honest here. The first year under Don Brown, not bad. It wasn't a great defense by any means, but not only was it not a great defense, it was a defense that I think is fair to say is okay, just okay. But they turned over some new leaves. I'll put it to you like that. And then in the second year, you lose Don Brown, who went off to become the head coach of Mississippi State. And the one thing about it is you do have a group of guys who I think are fair. It's fair to say are not just were in over their head. You had a defensive line right there last year that couldn't get after the passer. You had Hunter Echols out there, who was probably your best defensive lineman. And not only was he probably your best defensive lineman, he was probably the player who I think it's fair to say was far and away the best player on the team. Everything else was just kind of this, kind of that, whatever the case may be. But last year, obviously, couldn't get after the passer. He brought a lot of different situations in there. This year, though, Jedd Fisch said, we are going to be a much improved team right here. Not only are we going to be a much improved team, we are going to be a team defensively that will not take a lot of steps from anybody right there, that will not be pushed around. And we've heard this before because let's be honest here. Every coach says they're going to put a defense out there that's not going to be pushed around. And guess what? A lot of times those defenses do exactly that. They get pushed around. Boom. That's what happens right there. They get pushed around. This is I think this is fair to say right now that Arizona got a defensive line that is actually fairly solid. I don't know what else to put it right there. So, and let's talk about it then. The defensive line in that first drive or two, it looked terrible. And not only did it look terrible, it looked like a defense that was kind of, well, we've seen this before. Anytime the running back is already getting to the safety and before you've even been hit, that's somewhat of an issue. And not only is it somewhat of an issue, it's not the greatest thing in the world by any means. But as John Schuster said, our good friend John Schuster said, I do think that this is going to be the defense is going to figure it out, and the defense did figure it out. And a big reason why is because they weren't tired at the end of the game. How many times have we seen Arizona defenses that get tired at the end of the game, that get not only do they get tired at the end of games, they get worn down, they get beat up, whatever the case may be. That didn't happen here. Not only that, you can make the case that Arizona was stronger going into that second or that fourth quarter and overtime. It just, again, didn't work out for him. You missed that tackle, and that was a terrible tackle to miss right there because it ended up in a touchdown. But the defensive line showed up in a big way, and a player that we got to give a lot of kudos to is Tai Uiagalelei. Now, Tai Uiagalelei is a player that was also kind of underrated coming out of school. I think that's fair to say. And he has been a difference maker. And I think a lot of people are wondering, why isn't he starting? I'm kind of in one of those. I'm kind of in that way as well. I think that he's been that one defensive lineman in the middle that is able to get to the quarter, or that is able to get there and go after players. That's where it's interesting for me right there. So now at that defensive end position right there, we have got to give some kudos to. We got to give some kudos then to. Let's be honest here, Taylor Upshaw. With Taylor Upshaw, he is a dude who is he is able to get after the passer. And you know what? Sometimes just because a dude isn't good enough at Michigan doesn't mean that he can't be good enough here. And I get it. With when you're with your Big Bill Norton, Big Bill Norton, who we're going to get to in a second. But when you're Taylor Upshaw, sometimes you can actually make things happen. And not only can you make things happen, you can get after the passer. I was very, very impressed by what I've seen from Taylor Upshaw. And a big reason why these defensive linemen were able to run straight is the pressure of Big Bill Norton. All right, we're going to talk about Big Bill Norton here in a second. Dude out of Georgia, big-time guy, big-time prospect. Didn't play a ton there, and we're going to talk about him in here just a second. But first, we got to talk about FanDuel. All right, FanDuel. Check it out. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. All kinds of good stuff going on right there. This is the time of the year that you want to bet on games. I want to bet on games. You want to bet on games. We all want to bet on games right there. Check it out. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Again, we told you before this season, take Arizona, and not only take Arizona with the over, and take them to cover against Mississippi State. Guess what? They did just that. If you had done that on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, you'd have a little bit more money going into these Monday night games, again, a lot of stuff to look at right there. A lot of stuff right there in these Monday night games to be able to say Arizona's in pretty good shape right there. That's where you want to go. FanDuel Sportsbook. Check it out. FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. You'll thank me later. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about the man of the hour, Big Bill Norton. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Now, Big Bill Norton. Here's what I like about Big Bill Norton is he came in here, not the biggest, or I was going to say, not a ton expected because, again, we've seen this many, many times before. And not only have we seen this many, many times before, he's the guy who sometimes comes in and can play, sometimes can't. That's simple. Big Bill Norton showed that he can 100% play at this level. The first game was NAU, and not only was the first game NAU, he just looked a little different out there. Looked a little bigger. Looked like he could push the pile. There was a lot to like there. But you also kind of wondered, would that really carry over to Mississippi State? Because again, Mississippi State, different animal entirely. We saw it last year with that. They were kind of able to throw things down. And not only were they able to just kind of push Arizona around, there wasn't really much help because the defense was going to break down. The defense did not break down, though, against Mississippi State. And not only did it not break down against Mississippi State, it was I think we're kind of at the stage now where that the defensive line could potentially be a strength of the team right there. And not only could it be a strength of the team, it could be something that kind of carries Arizona through here a little bit. And not only does it carry Arizona through a little bit, we're kind of now where, all right, you got Big Bill Norton up there. He's one of the biggest dudes that Arizona has had in recent memory. And not only is he one of the biggest guys that Arizona's had in recent memory, one of the players who can take up multiple blockers. That's the other thing that Arizona has had a really, really a bear of a time with, is finding guys who can take up multiple blockers. And when you can find somebody that can take up multiple blockers, it allows your linebackers to run free. And not only does it allow your linebackers to run free, it also allows your defense to be able to come up and be a little bit more, how do we put this? I would say just more aggressive. Because you know that you've got that backbone in the middle of the defense, and that's kind of where we're at right there. Big Bill Norton, though, is kind of the guy that makes everything run. You got Tai Uyagalele next to him then. Tyler Manoa, if he comes around. Then you got Taylor Upshaw. You got all these other dudes. And it just feels weird saying that Arizona's got multiple options there. And that leads us to the linebackers now. Because Big Bill Norton is a big, big reason that these linebackers were able to get in the spot that they are right now. Let's talk about the linebackers then. Justin Flowe. I got to be honest with you. I was wrong. Now again, I'm going to be wrong many, many times. But Justin Flowe has a little bit of that quick twitch, that snatch that you don't generally see from, let's be honest here, Arizona linebackers. And he was able to get after the Mississippi State players, and he just has a hit. He has an explosion, a retention right there that most players that come to the U of A, honestly, they just don't have. And not only do they not have, they don't have, and it gets after the and it becomes problematic after that. So that's where Justin Flowe is. Now, I think the one thing that we do know now is that Justin Flowe needs to play more. Jedd Fisch mentioned that in the presser right there, that he needs to be able to play more. And not only does he need to play more, he needs to they need to find out ways to utilize him better. Because, again, this dude's a hit stick. This guy's somebody that can make plays, that can get after the passer. And not only that, he can be a problem in the running game. Now, we talked about it. He's going to have all kinds of issues in the passing game. Get it. But sometimes you got to pick up one end of the stick. You got to pick up the other one as well. And picking up those end of the sticks is generally a good thing because, again, dude had 12 tackles. And if he was in there in overtime, I doubt he's missing that tackle right there. Now, Jacob Manu is very, very good. But Jacob Manu is also limited. There's no doubt about it. He's a littler dude. He's not exactly somebody that is going to make a ton of big impact plays. That's why he needs Big Bill Norton in front of him right there. But the one thing is with Justin Flowe is he has the potential to be kind of the game changer on this defense. And we talked about that when Justin Flowe committed here. Listen, he was the top-rated defensive player in the entire country coming out of high school. That's how much he was wanted. And not only was he that dude, he was injured a little bit, but he's a big guy. He's played hard, and the coaching staff has given him a lot of kudos for how he's played. Got to give him a lot of credit on that one right there. Big time, like I said, big time potential, lots of different skills right there from Justin Flowe. Now, in the secondary, then, it gets a little more interesting. But first, we're going to talk about Daniel Haimuli. Daniel Haimuli, who I think a lot of people wanted kind of in that corner, or not that corner, that safety linebacker kind of hybrid role because he can cover. But the problem, though, is that he's also physically limited. We've seen that before. He's physically limited. And not only is he physically limited, he's just not kind of the game-changing player that Justin Flowe is. And that's something that we got to keep in mind when you're looking at that linebacking unit. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to talk about what we saw from the defense out there because there was some good and there was definitely some bad. Thanks for making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, defensively, this starts and stops with Ephesians Prysock at that one corner spot. That one corner spot is, I think, pretty much on lockdown. He's just really, really good. He's an NFL player at that corner spot. It's easy to see that he's an NFL player at that corner spot. And not only that, he is somebody who I think it's fair to say is, I'll be honest here. I think that he could play in the NFL. And I think not only that, he can be an NFL pick. He can be a high NFL pick. And he showed just that against Mississippi State. Nobody is going to play against Arizona and try to go after Ephesians Prysock. They're going to go after other players, no doubt, but they are not going to try to go after Ephesians Prysock. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. And honestly, on the other side then, that's where it becomes interesting because you got Wyatt, and then you got kind of Takario Davis there at the other corner spot, kind of, moving around there a little bit. But those are going to be the spots. Those are going to be the players that you can tell the Mississippi State or their good teams are going to try to go after because Prysock going at him at the other spot is kind of best way to put it is that's probably a futile mission right there. That's the best way that I can put that one. Prysock's not the dude to go after. He's not the guy to test. Those other corners are going to get tested. That's where it also helps to have Traden Stukes at that nickel because Traden Stukes can also cause some real problems there at that nickel spot because he can tackle. He's got good tackles for loss, all of that stuff. And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind right here. And not only do we have to keep that in mind, you've got to also wonder to yourself, what is going on at that safety spot? Because the one thing that we do know is that's definitely the weak link of the team right now. And a big part of that is Gunnar Maldonado. Now, Gunnar Maldonado was suspended for the first half of that game against Mississippi State for targeting in the previous game. But these teams, these coaches, these schools, they all know what they're doing, and they decided that they were going to wait until Gunnar Maldonado got back on the field, and then guess what? Go right after Gunnar Maldonado right there. Not only was Gunnar Maldonado going after it, he was burnt immediately. The first drive of the second half, he gave up a touchdown where he just got totally smoked out there. And that's going to happen a lot this year just because Gunnar can't cover. I mean, Gunnar can hit, hence the name, but he can't cover. That's why I would love to see Genesis Smith out there. The safety only got 2 snaps against Mississippi State. I think he's got to be out there more. And then next to him, you got some other questions. You got an Isaiah Taylor, who I like, but he can be also somewhat limited as well. But the safeties are definitely the weak link of the defense right now. But overall, we got to give the Arizona defense a huge amount of kudos because I didn't expect them to play like this, and I don't think anybody else expected them to play like this. Through 2 games, they've been good. And not only through 2 games have they been good, they've also been the team that I think it's, they're going to be able to stay in some games because of the defense. And I don't know anybody that thought that before the season. I certainly didn't. But again, got to give a big tip of the cap to Jedd Fisch and the coaching staff because there's just, he's done a really, really good job of overhauling this defense. All right. So again, a lot to like about Arizona. Going forward, we are going to talk about Mississippi State, about Arizona basketball, because again, Tommy Lloyd's got a pretty good team on his hands in case you didn't know right there. But as always, very much appreciate all of you listening and making a Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. And we're going to be back with you tomorrow, again, day by day right here, talking some Arizona basketball. I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to Locked On Wildcats.